Hey, hey.
My time on the Hadar Ape Dalit Gimel, delay Sanle Bitsina. I said it already. So that right, exactly like we said, the Dalit is facing away from the Gimel, that it should be Bitsina. Hine Dalit Gimel More or Dag More Lehipuch the Dalit. Okay, Lehipuch. Okay, that Dalit Gimel is like the opposite. Right now, one of the things that we have to know in order to learn this Chassidus is that every month has a mazal, okay? And the mazal of Adar is the fish, yeah, is the dag, okay, Pisces, I guess you could say, right? So so that's the mazal of, and that's Dalit Gimel, exactly, okay? So, but it's not B'nal, yes, okay? So Purim, Dag, Gimel, Dalit, right? It's all Kilu. Like we said, the Hebrew letters have a lot of depth. Okay, Hebrew. It's not a coincidence that the word Dag, which means fish, is the opposite of Gimel Dalid, and it's all Hashem's hand. Okay, so the Dalid Mahadar Ape Legimel Delite Lo B'Far Hesia. Okay, so with the Dalid Gimel, look at how it's the Dalit facing the Gimel. Ki'ilu, the Dalit is chasing after the Gimel, rather than the Gimel chasing after the Dalit. Okay, so instead of it being Bitsina, it's actually the Dalit sort of like running after and saying, "Can I have, please?"
Yeah, but also within our school, there's also the fact that when we finished off on like we're supposed to give to, and everybody has to give. Nobody knows the difference.
Oh. Perfect. The savar shelo yo'il lichbot. Okay, and the idea is that it's not going to make them. It's not going to be. It's not going to anger. Okay, it's not. He's not forcing anyone to do anything. It's not like a. It's not in a way that's like a negative. Like rude. That's the word I'm looking for. It's not in a rude way. Okay. Okay. Because it's happening in this month. And this month, the whole thing is benafochu. The bischus Mordechai ve'Esther. Okay. And we know that the geula of Purim, and Purim is representative. It's like there's a Purim in all of our generations and in all of our lives, right? And the geula of Purim is in the schus of Mordechai and Esther. Okay, but look at the names. Very, very, again, there's so much depth in everything, right? Mordechai Ole Rav Chesed. Okay, the gematria of the name Mordechai is Rav Chesed. Okay.
I don't understand that. Say it again.
So we're learning like an idea. Okay, so half of the idea, right? The idea is that the geula comes in the schus of Mordechai and Esther. Okay, half of the idea is that the name Mordechai is equal to the gematria of Rav Chesed, meaning a great deal of Chesed. Okay, the Esther Mora zechut shenotnim Chesed behester. Okay, and Esther, which is the lashon of Hester, meaning hidden. Yes. So the zchus of that, the merit of that, is that we do give in a way of hiddenness. Okay, let's keep on going for a second. And that is able to sort of cut off the potential anger. Okay, that right. If you walk up to someone and say like, I know you're poor. Here's some money, right? So that could cause that person not just humiliation, but anger, right? Because humiliation, whatever, we don't know how someone's going to respond to that. It could be in a way of anger, and anger is always like a harsh energy that comes into the world. We want to stop anger from coming into the world. The Gemara says that anger is like avodah zara, right? It's like a very, very strict and harsh energy that comes into the world. Haman kind of represents many, many bad things, but anger is one of them. Okay, Lachen kiblu lishloch manot ish l're'ehu umatanot le'avyonim. Okay, this is why. Okay, exactly like Hindi was about to say. Okay, that this is why we have both of these mitzvahs. Okay, one of the mitzvahs is to send food gifts to your friends, to your neighbors, and the other one is to send gifts to poor people. De'az harei matan beseter. Okay, but one of the ways one of the things that's happening here is that it all is in a way of secret, of hiddenness. Ki hasholech matanot le'avyonim sovrim shesholech manot ish l're'ehu v'lo mitbayesh l'kabel. Okay, that a person, we could basically say, we don't know what you're getting, right? If you're giving a gift of food, okay, and you're giving it to someone because they don't have food, it looks exactly the same as you're giving food to someone because they're your, neighbor, they're your friend. Mishloch manot and matanot le'avyonim could look exactly the same.
Can I ask you, is matanot le'avyonim can't get enough food? Because there's so many things that go around for Purim asking for people to get matanot le'avyonim, this, that.
Right.
Is there a specific thing really?
I mean, there is a specific idea that it should just be tzedakah, and it doesn't really matter exactly what kind of tzedakah it is. But in this particular piece, you can imagine in the shtetl, right? Think about what's going on in the shtetl, right? They're not sending checks to Shalva, right? Which is a very worthy organization, but that's not what their world was, right? In the shtetl, it's everyone knew who was poor, right? And there were literally people who couldn't put food on their table, right? So Purim was a day where they got food from everybody. Everybody got food from everybody else, and it didn't matter whether it was being given to you because you couldn't put food on your table or because they loved you. Either way, it's because of love, right? So it's like this beautiful concept that the idea of having both of these things, right? Because the truth is, matanot le'avyonim. First of all, we have a mitzvah always of tzedakah, right? But why davka, right? Like why davka on Purim? Is it like stressed in this way? Okay, and also like mishloch manot, such a funny mitzvah. It's such a funny mitzvah, right? Like to say we're having a Purim Suda that day. like why really? Like what do we, right? How many of us like start, we start eating in the morning, we don't stop until midnight, whatever it is, right? It's like such a funny thing. We definitely don't need food that day. Some people will need food that day. And maybe their Purim Suda will be made up of their Mishloch Manot, or which is really Matanot Le'avyonim, right? But in this way, everyone's giving and everyone's receiving, and it's Gimel Daled and Daled Gimel, and the whole thing is done in a way of, in a way nobody has to be embarrassed and nobody has to feel like they're the only receivers in the town and they can't give to anybody. They also have the mitzvah that they also have to give, but it doesn't have, there's a huge range. Like obviously thank God, Israel's much, much better than, America. Certain communities in America have taken this mitzvah, to unhealthy places. I think before it was worse. But it doesn't matter, it's 2 brachas. That's it. Or it's not even. I heard actually the other day that we all make it, we all increase. It's really 2 foods. Whatever that means. Yeah, good one. I always do my mishloch manot. I'm really, it's not my mitzvah. It's not like, I mean, I do it, but I'm not like good at it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I always have these like grand dreams. And one year when I was living in Pittsburgh, we had so much, this was like my one year that I actually did. There are people that come up with like a theme, right, and the family is dressed in a costume, and the mishloch manot is crazy amount of snow, and And so I decided snow was my theme, and I gave out all white food.
I like that.
And then on top of that, I had like I wrote a whole poem. I have to find somewhere. I made also what's it called? The red velvet cake from a mix, whatever, but red velvet cake, and I put white icing on it. And I basically said like our love, and like it keeps us warm. That was like the red center of this like white mishloach manot. That was like it was the glory days. Once. But I generally do it according to, I like pass by a store. I pass by that great store. All these containers outside. So like literally based on what I saw outside, I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do that. And those are I went and I bought them and done. I mean, not done yet, but like it's on the way. It's on the way. The door's open. But it's, it can be very simple, and it can be, and like if we tap into the beauty of the idea of it, it always gives it more meaning, right? Okay, so we have more ideas about mishloach manot and matanot le'evyonim. We're going to go down to the V'yad ber Moshe, okay? So Rabbi Moshe Yechiel Elimelech of Libertal. Okay, these are all not, I love when they say that. It means like, according to my humble opinion. Exactly. That's a beautiful way of translating. Right, da'ati, my like knowledge. Lama nitztavinu. I'm just reading from the thing just in case, like there's some weirdness over here. Okay, the beginning of the bracket should be, it shouldn't be ve'al. It should be a bracket and then just al. The vav is the bracket. Okay, so lama nitztavenu, not nitztarinu. Sorry, it was a little bit busy morning finding out that my group's planes were canceled, so I I didn't get a chance to go over this so well. Okay, I mean how it printed out. Okay, da'ati lama nitztavinu al zeh, meaning on what? Al mishloach manot. Okay, ma shayecha zot el hayeshua ve'hanitzachon. What is the? Whoa, what happened here? Ma shayecha zot. Oh, okay, I'm on the wrong one. I'm always wary that I didn't read this one over on the sheet, but tell me if it goes wonky, okay? So what's the connection, right? What's the connection between mishloach manot and the salvation and the victory of Purim? Yeah? Achen nireh ki tiknu bazeh shebal yismechu levad behanitzachon. It seems to me, right, that the Anshe Knesset Agdola, they basically made this mitzvah, yes, in order to make sure that we're not just being happy about the victory. Okay, let's keep on going. Because it's not really about that we were victorious over our enemies. Because really, what's the simcha? It's that we survive, that we right. It's like looking at it from, we have to make sure to look at it from the right side, right? It's not the yes, of course there's a simcha in that, that we how do I want to say it? That we continue to exist even after this terrible attack on us, right? So it's not like a victory, it's a victory in survival, the victory of survival, let's call it that.
The Arabs go out and celebrate.
Right, exactly.
And for every,
that's why.
For everything. But we have the tzivui also been followed by al tismach. Okay.
Right.
We have to find that balance.
We have to find the balance.
That's
exactly what he's saying here. Okay, and that's really why I brought that, because I brought this piece, because I felt like it was very connected to our times, which is, yeah, I mean, the pictures that we get posted of like, all the surrenders of the Hamas, Shema, that they, I feel like it is important to see, but it's important to see it with the right eyes, right? Meaning it's Hashem's handing, giving over our enemy into our hand for the survival of Am Yisrael, right? Not to look at it with like, yeah, we did it. We're so tough. We're so, but you're not gloating. Exactly. It's very, very important that we, and that's why it's always, we've spoken about this before. That's why it's always very important to remember like IDF, right? Israel Defense Force, right? Not Israel Attack Force or Israel, provoke force. Yeah, that's exactly the word I was looking for, right? So the victory is the victory of survival, of continuity, of Am Yisrael, of eternity of Am Yisrael. That's the victory. Lachen, tzrichim lishloch manot ish l're'elu. So this is why we send gifts of food to our neighbors and friends. L'harot behishtatfut Yisrael ze im ze l'harot al ha'am kulo. That we basically are like including. We show that Am Yisrael is like an inclusive atmosphere. We'll call it. Okay. Hold on. Kol Yisrael nikru re'im, because all of Am Yisrael are called re'im. We're called like kamosha ne'amar v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, right? Like the mitzvah that we have to love your neighbor as yourself. So through it's kind of like a v'nafochu, right? In a way of like when we recognize that what's important is each other, then that in and of itself becomes the lens through which we see what happened on Purim. Right? It's like when it's like when your child, something happens, it's like, a near miss kind of thing, right? Like you see your child run across the street, chas v'shalom, and then the car comes, right? It's like, what do? Do you run after the car or do you like hug your child, right? That's the Baruch Hashem, you hug your child. Like the important thing is that your child is here. And that's what this is. Like we hug each other, we hug Ki'ilu with food. That's how we do it. But we hug each other with these like matanot, like mishloch manot, in order to express appreciation that we have each other. Because that's the ikar here, that we have each other, that we have this continuity of existence. Isn't that nice? Okay. And then he says, another idea, v'od nireli, v'hu nireh ikar, and this he says is like even more the ikar. Ki kol inyan ha'gzeira al kol Yisrael haya ba'avur shaya Haman b'ka'as al Mordechai v'yibez be'enav v'yishloch. Oh, so it's v'yibez, yeah, v'yibez. Okay.
What does that word?
Yeah, to like
insult.
Yeah. Okay, let's start translating. So there. Okay, so all the whole idea of the Gezerah on Am Yisrael was that Haman was angry at Mordechai, right? Ve'ibez be'einav l'shloach yad beMordechai levado v'chafetz la'asot klaya b'chol amo. He was angry with Mordechai, but he didn't think it wasn't enough like just to humiliate and avenge, like take revengeance on Mordechai, but rather on all of Am Yisrael. Right, Mordechai wasn't to him, and it's it's so interesting when these like Rashaim get more in a way to the Ikar than we do sometimes, right? That like what did Haman realize? That Mordechai wasn't just a single cell, right? He was a cell of a body that is totally interconnected. That Mordechai, even though Mordechai really was acting Baruch Hashem, like in his own righteousness and his own strength, right? And it's so interesting. The wording of the Megillah is lo yichra v'lo yishtachaveh, right? It's not Mordechai lo kara v'lo hishtachaveh. I don't know, like that. It's not past tense. It's actually future tense, right? Mordechai, I will not bow down, not now and not ever. Right, that was the viewpoint of Mordechai, right? He wasn't just saying me as a single individual, that I'm not bowing down in this moment. He, in Mordechai's, expansive mindset, he was representative of all the Jews. And he was basically saying the Jewish nation will not now and will not ever bow down to Amalek. And Haman understood that. And so he wasn't just interested in arrest that Jew and put him into jail. No, he was like, I'm going to kill this entire nation because this is
killing him, actually, killing the nation.
Right. But he took it in a physical sense to that place, right? Even though we understand that now, they didn't understand that then. They didn't understand that. Mordechai was not understood by everybody there. Right? He was kind of like in the actions, in the story of the Megillah, they come to appreciate him. But people were very shocked by the fact that he didn't bow. Like they actually said, you're going to bring down this on our heads. And Dafka, he did, but it was to enable the whole story, the whole plot to unfold, the whole, hand of Hashem to be seen through. But it's very interesting that in the moment, there was great fear that came upon Am Yisrael because of Mordechai's actions. And so therefore there was not such great feelings. Because we're not always as smart as, our tzaddikim. I didn't say our leaders, you notice, but rather our tzaddikim, right? Because Mordechai was a tzaddik. But anyway, Haman sensed this, and he understood that Mordechai isn't just a single individual. He is really represents all of Am Yisrael. So therefore, his anger was at all of Am Yisrael. So because Am Yisrael suffered at his hands, is that?
Yeah, that's also.
Oh my goodness. It's Shisavru. I'm sorry. Shisavru. Savlu. It's Shisavlu, right? That they suffered. One line up from the bottom. Lachen mipnei shesavlu. Yisrael ba'avuro, because we suffered because of him, the him being Haman, V'hasone hirgish kishram, and the hated person felt our connection, v'achdutam, and our unity. Ad asher ki ish echad yechatel lefanav al kol amo yirtze lashlich zamo. To the point where one person, he's, misbehaved in front of him, and he wants to kill the entire nation. Okay, that's like the idea that he took in his head. Ken ra'ui kasher Hashem hitzilam miyado. It's the second page. Other side. Ken ra'ui kasher Hashem hitzilam miyado. So therefore, it's only right that since Hashem saved us from His hand. So we laharod hanes, right? So we sort of publicized this miracle that we were nosda hatzara, that we, what is nosda?
Nosda is to establish.
Establish, okay. So that we basically I think it's we recognize the tzara through the mishloach manot. Each person to his neighbor. Laharot galui ki am Yisrael shutafut ve'achdut lahem, right? Like that we're actually what's the word? Like we're enacting, exactly what he sort of accused us of, but in a positive way, right? We're showing, yes, we're showing our cooperation and our unity. Kamosha tzara hayta nigzira al yedei zeh. Because the tzara, the suffering, or the negative thing, the accusation and the attack essentially was it was brought about by a negative sense of this achdut and hishtatfut, right? Like Haman was saying, this whole nation is terrible, right? So it's funny because on one hand, right, accusation. He said we're all the same, but we're scattered everywhere, right? And so one of the things that we're showing by Matanot L'Re'ehu is yes, we are, but in a positive way. We're one, And maybe we're also all over the world physically, right? But we're all doing this mitzvah, and this mitzvah is sort of representative of exactly of love and achdus, right? And we're like sort of like establishing for good the connections that he was saying that we had for bad.
Well, that's why many rabbanim say, even though it says, Yishel Re'ehu, you're not supposed to send it to your buddy who you know.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to send it to people
right.
who you don't necessarily.
I think this is so annoying. It must be so annoying for Becky. It's like keeps on cutting out. Anyway, I'm recording it. I'll send it out.
You all close
Sometimes. Right. It depends on where No, meaning like you sometimes you buy an apartment, let's say, and in a big city, you don't know your neighbors. Yeah. Dafka, their music is too loud, or your baby's crying and disturbing them. Sometimes Dafka, it's your neighbors that you need to send mishloch manot to in order to sort of like pave the way for open-heartedness, right?
Shושנה.
Ken kasher nosu, yeah.
I wanted to say something. When we're talking about the manot le'evyonim, it sounds like it's something new, but this is not something new. This is something that Ezra and Nehemiah started when they came back from Galut. And it was Rosh Hashanah, Dafka, that they said, Lechu achlu v'shatu v'shalchu manot l'mi shetzarich lo. Okay, and that was Dafka on Rosh Hashanah to take away the idea of the Yom Hadin, that it would be a Yom of sadness, it would be a Yom of happiness, a Yom of Simcha. And the idea was that they wanted to show them that now that we're back in Eretz Yisrael, that is the Nitzachon, that we're no longer in Galut. Mm-hmm. So that
beautiful.
When we see that we're doing it on Purim, Dafka, it's interesting that they took the minhag that they did on the first Rosh Hashanah, and they're transforming it to Purim. In other words, the Kedusha of the Rosh Hashanah that Ezra and Nehemiah did then, they're putting onto Purim.
That's so interesting. It's so interesting also because, there's a famous idea. I mean, there's a Gemara, right, about Purim and Yom HaKippurim, right? That there's a connection between those two. So it's interesting that you're bringing in Rosh Hashanah, like all the Chagim of Tishrei are, connected in that way, and we can connect Purim into those. Beautiful, thank you. Okay, last line. Ken kasher nosho mitkashrim atzmam ze im ze. Okay, in order to create connections, we do this, and through doing it, we create new connections or solidify our connections. Beautiful. Okay, and the last piece. So this person is not normally not the Yismach Yisrael is also the name of the Alexander Rebbe, but in this case we're talking about the Rebbe Yisrael of Chortkov. Chortkov is a Hasidus of Ruzhin. If anybody's connected to Ruzhin, Rebbe Yisrael of Ruzhin was a great grandson of the Maggid of Mezrich. So there's a big Hasidus that still exists today. Sadigor, right? What's the other one that's big still today? Usiatin, Stefanisht, anyway, whatever. It's all Ruzhin. Okay, so Chortkov. The Chortkov Rebbe, he says, Matanot le'avyonim, he echad me'em mitzvot Purim, v'tzarich lavin lama tiknu chazal b'Purim daiki matanot le'avyonim. Okay, so just an introductory sentence, right? Why do we have matanot le'avyonim? Dafka on Purim. Okay, so he brings a totally different reason, which I think is really, really interesting. Achen, ha'inyan hu, Purim hu zman mechiyat Amalek. The Amalek hu Esav. Okay, that Purim, right? Our part of our mitzvah, part of our job on Purim is to erase Amalek. Okay, and Amalek is Esav, right? Amalek was literally a grandson of Esav, like in the physical person of Amalek, and then the nation that comes out, right? And Amalek, we know, is the purpose of Amalek is Asher Karcha Badera, right? It's like the cynicism and the to cool off our fervor of that Am Yisrael is a very exclusive part of Israel, that we're a special nation, that we can be like overcome with fire of love for each other, right? The Amalek, the voice of Amalek is, you're same like everybody else, and you made mistakes, and all of these things that Esav basically represents. Okay. V'yadua shekol kocho shel Esav hu mitzvat kibud av ve'em asher kiyem. Okay. That we know that Chazal teach us that the only mitzvah that Esav really was actually, I don't know, successful is not, I'm not sure if it's the word, but the mitzvah that he is given some zechut for is that he did kibud av ve'em. He specifically did kibud av, right? Yeah. But in some way he did uphold that mitzvah. V'hinei l'kayem mitzvah ketikuna tzarich l'kayma b'machshava dibur u'maisa. So generally speaking, in order to fulfill a mitzvah, in the way that it needs to be fulfilled, there is a function. There is an aspect of thought, speech, and action. Okay, we want to shake the lulav. Okay, so first we in our thought, obviously there's a lot that goes into that, right? We have to go buy a lulav, so we have to do that. We have to take it out. Okay, so part of that is the thought. The bracha, okay, is speech, and the shaking of the lulav is action. Okay, so generally speaking, every mitzvah has those three aspects. But of course, in a deeper sense, there's always the kavana is part of machshava, right? There's a lot of deep aspects, but really just those three aspects are the full culmination, let's say. Okay, in a way of kibbutz mitzvah, full. B'vadai lo kiyem Esav mitzvah kibud av ve'em ba'ofen zeh. It's for sure that Esav didn't keep the mitzvah of kibud av ve'em with thought, speech, and action, like in a real way. Okay, im kol zeh zacha al yidei mitzvah zo. But even so, there was some aspect that he did keep, and he was given credit for it. Ya'an mitzvahs kibud av ve'em hi min ha-mitzvahs she'afshar l'kayma af shelo lishma. Because the mitzvah of kibud av ve'em is actually one of these mitzvahs that there's sort of like some of the mitzvahs you have to do, like a big piece of them is doing it lishma, that you're doing it for the mitzvah, that you're doing it because you want to connect to Hashem, right? When we shake the lulav, there isn't really like a benefit of the, to us of shaking the lulav. So it sort of built into that mitzvah is that you're doing it because Hashem told you to do it, right? It's not like when okay, the esrog smells nice, fine, but you don't like, as you're shaking, you don't get like a whiff of, it's not like some like bubble forms around us of, of the beautiful smell of the esrog, or like, we don't see any of that. So it's one of these mitzvahs that we understand what's going on. And so therefore sort of built in is like, okay, but I'm going to do it anyway because Hashem told me to do it. Okay. But kibud av ve'em actually has very much a, like, I'm going to benefit from this in a way. It can. Okay. And therefore also built into that is that you don't have to have any lishma in kibud av ve'em. Why? Let's say a person, helps their mother out of the car. Okay. And they're doing it only because everyone in the shul is standing there watching them, and they want to be known as, a tzaddik, right? And it's really just about the image. Okay. But what still happens? Why?
Because you're still doing it.
Because you still helped your mother out of the car, right? And the mother, your mother, okay, the mother gets benefit from it. So therefore, that is like just as important as the reason why, or even more really, as the reason why you're doing it. Okay?
I think what he's trying to say here also is, when you do a regular, the other mitzvahs, it's right. And you don't say that necessarily even in your mind, right, before you're going to do a favor for somebody, or you're going to help your parents, or whatever.
Right. But they still get it.
Yeah.
Right. I always use the example of like, there were times in my life where like I sign up for, one of the things that I find not so challenging is to make meals for people who just had babies. Like one of these things that I sort of very easily sign up for, but not in all times of my life has it been so easy to, to do that, right? But I remember specifically like one period in my life, I felt like I had to sign up because my name had to be on the chart of the people who are making food for this person, and it definitely was an ego thing, not even a question about it, right? But the truth, like that example can be used, like the Rebbe actually uses an example similar to that, and he says, but the mother still gets the meal. So, so on one hand, while it doesn't cause me to grow as a person when I sign up for a meal, totally based on my ego, but on the other end, on the receiving end of the mitzvah, that doesn't matter at all, right? The food doesn't taste different to that family because I signed up because of my ego, right? They're getting a meal, and that's what's important, right? Okay. Did I say something?
No.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Okay. Ki al kol panim ha'av nehene mimenu, right? Because the father enjoyed it, and we know that Yaakov Yitzchak enjoyed, right? Esav's kibud av, okay? Ve'al ken af she'en kavanato kara'ui mitzvah tachashev. So therefore, even though his intentions weren't the best, the mitzvah is still tachashev. It's still valued. Okay, because it happened. Mechiyat Amalek tuchal liyot im Yisrael yikaimu hamitzvah kara'ui. Okay, the mechiyah of Amalek can be like obviously we need to do it kara'ui. We need to do it in the best way. Al yidei zeh yivatlu kocho zchuto shel Esav. That is how we when we do it the right way. Then that's how we actually erase we erase the zechuyot that Esav got by doing kibud av v'em, okay? But lekayem mitzvah karaui b'machshava b'dibur ma'aseh bli shum pniya kashe me'od. But in order to keep that mitzvah with machshava dibur ma'aseh with the right kavana, it's very very hard. Lachen השכילו חז"ל ובחרו במצוות צדקה שגם אותה אפשר לקיים אף שלא לשמה. So therefore Chazal chose the mitzvah of tzedakah as the mitzvah that sort of embodies the power to mechiyat, to limchot Amalek. The mitzvah of tzedakah that we do on Purim has a big power against Amalek. Why? Because that is also a mitzvah that it falls into that category of you can do it without the right kavana. You can do it without machshava dibur ma'aseh. Well, really just the ma'aseh is the important part. Right? Because what happens? The poor person still gets the money. The poor person still gets the help. So it doesn't matter really in this particular case. I mean, in any case, really, but on Purim Dafka, this aspect of the end result is the most important thing, matches the mitzvah of Esav of kibud av v'em, where the end result was the important thing. And that's why they kind of cross each other out. It like the mitzvah that we do of tzedakah, of matanot le'evyonim on Purim, has that same power, the same flavor as what Esav did with kibud av v'em. And that's why it's like in a math problem, right? When you have two like things, they cancel each other out. And that's what Chazal saw in this mitzvah, that it has that same koach.
Can I tell you that when you say the story about like doing, meals for people, and then like not always was something that you felt that you were ready to do, but you did it anyway.
Yeah.
Like I had recently with my kids, we were in the car in the States, and I'm trying to help my big girls. And we were talking about like doing things for people. And then at one point, Aura said in the car, she says, Ma, you're constantly doing for people, but I see that you are so busy and stressed because you're doing a million things. And I don't know, is that really good for you? And I said, but I like to give. And I really had to think about what she was saying, because I said, not that I still wouldn't be doing, but sometimes I'm doing so many things and I just want to do another thing. And then I don't realize, because my day is so short and I can't, that I'm doing it because I want to, but then chesed, sometimes the stuff is for yourself. Yeah. Like you have to also say, where am I for tzedakah? Right. So it's not always that like you do it because there is a negative.
Right. Sometimes my friend Yael says, every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. Right. So then we do have to, and it is an important nikuda to stop and say, like, why am I actually doing this, and how, and am I sort of bringing more negative energy into the world by doing this,
right,
than positive energy?
right, and we want to know that unit too. Also, there's so much in Hemi that is gluttonous and like.
But each person has to
doing it
right.
anymore. Then
right.
It also is not, even if you did it and you're saying that, but you did it anyway, so you're still going to get the credit. I don't know.
But we have to find the balance, because we have to do it, right? It's a mitzvah
right.
of the day, and so we definitely should try to find the balance of, like, I think the rule of thumb is like to push yourself slightly beyond what is comfortable, not overextend, but slightly beyond what is comfortable. And then that has like a merit. But for each person, that's different. And for every stage of your life, for every Purim, that's a different situation. When we have, I don't know that this ever happens when we have tons of time and everything is calm, which, is not a reality, right? Then you can do more. And when you're stretched very thin, then you have to do less. Mm-hmm. But I think also it's very important to sort of also say to that sometimes what something looks like from the outside is not what it is on the inside, right? Meaning it could be that she sees you looking stressed, but really there's like the stress is maybe coming from other things, and the doing is actually limiting that or giving to yourself, right? Exactly. But again, but we all have to. It's an important thing to stop and think about that.
But I felt my family thinks that
yeah, agreed. Like what I think we were talking about last week. You said like this schwer design a yid, right? You can't, right? If what our kids are seeing is it's so hard to make Shabbos, then they're gonna have a negative kind of negative connections to Shabbos, right? So yeah, absolutely. These are all very, very important questions to ask. Okay, so the last line here. Okay, so we'll just read that again. Lachen hiskilu, right? It's a beautiful thing that he says hiskilu, right? They intuited, they used their wisdom to understand. Chazal bacharu b'mitzvat tzedakah shegam ota efshar lekayem af shelo lishma, because they chose this specific mitzvah because this also can be upheld without there being like a lishma thing for it, an aspect to it. ותקנו בפורים זמן מחיית עמלק להרבות במתנות לאביונים, ועל ידה יגיעו למחיית עמלק. So, right, they made Purim be the specific time where we have like easier access to erase Amalek, right? That's the mitzvah. I mean, this Shabbos is gonna, not this Shabbos, next Shabbos is gonna be Shabbos Achor, but and so there we have to do this mitzvah every day. But there's a time that's more opportune for doing it, where we have more koach in doing it. And this mitzvah of matanot le'evyonim also gives us this koach to do that, because it's like the equal opposite thing. Okay, it's like good with no lishma, right? Like meaning we don't have to have kavana. We're just bringing goodness into the world, and that erases the negativity that Amalek brings into the world. So I'll give us all a bracha. Be'ezrat Hashem, we won't have class next week. And so I'll wish you all a Purim Sameach, and that when we, maybe through this learning, like just those two aspects of the day will take on greater meaning. We'll understand that there's this like deeper koach of connection and using the connections for good, right? Being stronger in the connections for good, and also knowing that through our giving that gives koach to erasing Amalek, and recognizing or being more present with, grateful for, aware, and giving koach to the nitzchi of Am Yisrael together. So so along with the list that I sent last week of Shabbos, I'll send you all the Purim, all the Purim shirim. Okay, there's a lot of koach in Purim. Like it's a really deep day. We get stuck in the Pitzonius, And it's really important to understand that it is literally a day that is as powerful as Yom Kippur.
So I'll tell you my favorite part is Yom
So we're going to make you connect it to Purim.
It's
It's your least favorite. Okay, but now full food. That's exactly right.
There you go. Take care. Travel safe, peace God.
Amen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Safe travel. You should be safe when you're there also. I'm sure it's fun.
Thank you, Shoshana.
Thank you, Becky. Purim Sameach.
Purim Sameach. What, Purim Sameach?
Well.